Hey there, Planeswalkers, it's Steve for Collector Mania, and I'm joining you for another Brawl Commander deck tech. So if you haven't heard yet, Brawl is a new format that Wizards is putting out for us, Commander players. It is essentially a standard rotating Commander that goes down to 60 cards instead of 100, makes it a little bit easier on the card pool since we are limited in some ways. You have a 30-point starting life total, which is a little bit less than regular Commander, but still pretty cushy. And of course it's a multiplayer format. Really, that's about it as far as differences, besides there's no commander damage. There is a ban list from what I understand, and that is exactly what's banned in Standard, which kind of plays into what we're doing here with Depala. So Depala is one of the other commanders that I really wanted to focus on, because we are going to basically turn these into like morph into commanders. So this is essentially my take on turning the Challenger deck, the Mardu one, into a Commander Brawl deck. So Depala Pilot Exemplar. So a colorless, a red and a white, legendary creature dwarf pilot. Other dwarves you control get +1/+1. Each vehicle you control gets +1/+1 as long as it's a creature. Whenever Depala Pilot Exemplar becomes tapped, you may pay X. If you do, reveal the top X cards of your library. Put all dwarf and vehicle cards from among them into your hand. Then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. She's also a 3/3. So pretty powerful. It's a good effect. It's kind of going to take the place of our card draw in this deck, just because there's really not that much card draw in red-white, especially in this limited pool. So breaking into our creatures here, we've got Toolcraft Exemplar. So he is a 1-white, 1/1 Dwarf Artificer, which works perfectly with our commander. He also has, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control an artifact, Toolcraft Exemplar gets +2/+1 until end turn. If you control 3 or more artifacts, it also gains first strike until end of turn. So really good early game for a great attacker, and then late game for a guy that'll crew a lot of your vehicles, essentially. Next up, we've got a Gearshift Ace. So a colorless and a white, 2/1, first strike. Essentially, if you crew a vehicle with him, it gains first strike until end of turn. And then we've got a Restoration Specialist. So recursion is always great in this format. So, well, Commander format, I shouldn't say this format. I don't know yet. I'm sure it is, though, because it always is. So a colorless and a white, 2/1 Dwarf Artificer, so once again right on point with Depala. It has pay a white, sacrifice Restoration Specialist, return up to 1 target artifact card, and up to 1 target enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. So really powerful, especially for getting, you know, those vehicles that people are going to try and get rid of early back on the battlefield. I've got a Speedway Fanatic, so a colorless and a red, haste. Whenever Speedway Fanatic crews a vehicle, that vehicle gains haste until end of turn, so really cool. It's a 2/1. Not a bad creature at all. Then I've got SRAM Senior Edificer. So this is probably a better choice for Commander as far as like a Brawl deck, but like I said, I'm sticking to a theme here. I will probably brew up a SRAM deck tech here at some point, just because he's going to be extremely powerful, especially with some of the equipments that are coming out in Dominaria, but we'll get there soon. So we've got a colorless and a white, legendary creature Dwarf Advisor, 2/2, so once again right on point with our commander. Whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle spell, draw a card. So that's going to be really important. This is probably one of our best card draw spells in the entire deck, because there aren't that many, I'll be honest. And I've got Veteran Motorist, so a red and a white, Dwarf Pilot, 3/1. When Veteran Motorist enters the battlefield, scry 2, so pretty cool. A little bit of help with our library. Whenever a Veteran Motorist crews a vehicle, that vehicle gets +1/+1 until end turn. So a little bit of a buff for some of our smaller vehicles. And I've got an Aerial Responder. So this is like the white version of Vampire Nighthawk. So we've got a colorless 2-white Dwarf Soldier, Flying Vigilance Lifelink, 2/3. So great attacker, great blocker, great crewer, basically everything we want. Then a little bit of removal here, we've got Deadeye Harpooner. So 2 colorless and a white. Dwarf Warrior, 2/2, so it's got Revolt. When Deadeye Harpooner enters the battlefield, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, destroy target tapped creature an opponent controls. So once again, removal is always important, and we really don't have that much of it, so this is a great card for us. Then we've got a Foundry Inspector. We could not include this guy, so 3 colors, 3/2, artifact spells you cast cost 1 colorless less to cast. So as you can probably guess, our deck focuses around artifacts quite a bit, so it's pretty important to have this guy. I've got a Master Trinketeer, so 2 colors and a white, Dwarf Artificer, Servos and Thopters you control get +1/+1. You can pay 3 and a white, create a 1/1 colorless Servo artifact creature token. So really, we don't have that many natural, I guess, tokens running around. There are a few, but this guy's just here essentially to create us an army if we are kind of like just drawing dead and have a ton of mana to spend, this guy's great for just creating little guys, plus he's great for crewing. He just kind of hangs back and gains his value over time. Now we've got a Pia Nalar, so 2 colors and a red, legendary creature, human artificer. When Pia Nalar enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. Has 2 activated abilities, so a colorless and a red, target artifact creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn, so that's great for our vehicles. And it also has pay 1, sacrifice an artifact, target creature can't block this turn. So once again, with those servos and Thopters and everything like that, we can use them to get past our opponent's blockers, stuff like that, you know, just get our vehicles in there to hopefully finish somebody off. Then we've got a Quick Smith Genius, so 2 colors and a red. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. It's not great card draw, but it'll work. Then we've got a Reckless Racer, so 2 colors and a red. First strike, whenever Reckless Racer becomes tapped, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Once again, it's not great card draw, but it'll work. They've got a Renegade Wheelsmith, so a colorless, a red, and a white Dwarf Pilot, 3/2. Whenever Renegade Wheelsmith becomes tapped, target creature can't block this turn. So once again, you know, you crew one of your big vehicles with this, and then all of a sudden they can't block with their best creature, and now you can basically just, you have open season essentially. I've got a Solemn Recruit, so a colorless and 2 white Dwarf Warrior, double strike, revolt at the beginning of your end step. If a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Solemn Recruit 2/2. So this is probably one of our best, like, non-vehicle attackers. This thing will get out of control pretty quick, especially if you have a lot of things leaving. So yeah, not a bad, you know, addition. Plus, like I said, with Depala, it works perfectly. And then I've got an Aeronaut Admiral, so 3 colors and a white, human pilot, 3/1. Flying, vehicles you control have flying, so a great, like, lord, I guess, for vehicles. And I've got Oketra the True, 3 colors and a white, legendary creature god, double strike, indestructible. Oketra the True can't attack or block unless you control at least 3 other creatures. 3 colors and a white, create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. So this is a lot like the Trinketeer earlier, but it can become a huge threat later on, and also early on it can crew a lot of our vehicles with really no downside because you can't block with it anyway, so pretty good addition here. Then we've got a Cataclysmic Gearhulk, so 3 colors, 2 white, artifact, creature, construct, vigilance. When Cataclysmic Gearhulk enters the battlefield, each player chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among the non-land permanents he or she controls, and sacrifices the rest. So a great way to just clear up the board after, you know, after it gets gummed up, really. Not a bad addition here as well. Then I've got a Combustible Gearhulk, so 4 colors, 2 red, construct, first strike. When Combustible Gearhulk enters the battlefield, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If that player doesn't, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, then Combustible Gearhulk deals damage to that player equal to the total converted mana cost of those cards, 6/6. So I love this card. I've been playing a lot in regular Commander for, I don't know, since it got printed essentially. It's generally going to draw you cards because people don't usually make the mistake of putting a whole bunch of stuff in your graveyard for you to deal a whole bunch of damage to them with. It might be a little bit different in this format because I don't, especially in a deck like this, we're pretty low to the ground, so, you know, it's not a bad choice for our opponents to send the cards to the graveyard if they don't mind taking a little bit of damage, but either way you get a 6/6 with first strike, so not bad at all. Okay. So breaking into our artifacts here, we've got Heart of Kiran. So it's a 2 colorless, 4/4, Flying Vigilance vehicle, legendary artifact that has crew 3. You may remove a loyalty counter from a planeswalker control rather than pay Heart of Kiran's crew cost. So I didn't really include any planeswalkers in this deck, so really you're just going to crew this regularly. The Flying and Vigilance and 4/4 is enough to me to be great. So then we've got a thematic Compass, so 2 colorless artifact that has pay 3, tap, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. It also has at the beginning of your end step, if you control 7 or more lands, transform Thematic Compass. So really there's not a whole lot of ways for us to, I guess, pseudo ramp or just find lands in our deck, so this is one of the best ways to just draw lands and put them into play. I mean, it's not ramping you essentially, but it's finding you the lands that you need. When it does flip over, though, that's where we're really looking at something kind of cool. So Spires of Araska, so this taps for a colorless. You can also tap it, untap target attacking creature an opponent controls, and remove it from combat. So kind of like a Core Haven, I would say, or a Maze of Ith, or, you know, any of those type of effects. So really powerful land. I hope to get this out and stop some crazy giant flying commanders. And then we've got an Aether Sphere Harvester, so 3 colorless artifact vehicle, flying. When Aether Sphere Harvester enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy, which unfortunately we're not using a whole lot of because energy doesn't really factor into what we're doing. But you can pay 1 energy Aether Sphere Harvester against lifelink until end of turn. It also has crew 1, so a pretty low crew cost. It's also 3/5, so not bad lifelinking 3/5 flyer. Then we've got a Cultivator's Caravan. Probably going to be one of the staples of the format, I'll be honest. It taps for any color, so as long as it's in rotation for Brawl, this will probably be used in pretty much every deck that can use it, because it's great ramp, it's creature, it's everything you want it to be. So 3 colors, 5/5, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, crew 3, so not bad. Then we've got a Mobile Garrison, so 3 colors, 3/4, artifact vehicle. Whenever Mobile Garrison attacks, untap another target artifact or creature you control. Then we've got a Peace Walker Colossus, so 3 colorless artifact vehicle. You can pay 1 colorless and a white. Another target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. It's got crew 4. It's also a 6/6, so pretty good size, body. Also, the ability to turn all of your vehicles on without tapping creatures is really powerful. So this is a definite one that we'll be looking for. Then we've got a Conqueror's Galleon, so this is probably one of my favorite vehicles of all time at this point. So 4 colors, 2/10. Crew 4, when Conqueror's Galleon attacks, exile it at the end of combat, then returns to the battlefield transformed under your control. Then it turns into Conqueror's Foothold. So it's a land, taps for a colorless. You can also pay 2, draw a card, then discard a card, or pay 4, draw a card, pay 6, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So basically does everything you want it to do. It's like the Staff of Domination of lands, so really powerful. Love the artwork too. Then we've got a Fleetwheel Cruiser, so 4 cost artifact vehicle, trample haste, 5/3, crew 2. It also has when Fleetwheel Cruiser enters the battlefield, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So one of the very few vehicles that just comes out and starts swinging without having to be crewed. Really powerful. Then Paradox Engine. We definitely had to include this in here. So 5 colorless legendary artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, untap all non-land permanents you control. So if you think about it, before combat, you use all of your guys to crew all of your vehicles, then you just cast something, untap all your guys. Now you've got a ton of attackers, plus everything's crewed already. Yeah, it's perfect. Then we've got Sky Sovereign Council Flagship. So 5 colors, 6/5, legendary artifact vehicle, flying. When Sky Sovereign Council Flagship enters the battlefield or attacks, it deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. I think I said crew 3, but anyway, this is like the Sun Titan of vehicles. It's not as good, but it's still pretty good. It's awesome beater. I mean, 6/5 flyers, they're always great. Okay, breaking into our sorceries here, we've got a Tormenting Voice. So a colorless and a red sorcery. As an additional cost to cast Tormenting Voice, discard a card, draw 2 cards. Pretty straightforward. Then we've got Dusk and Dawn. So 2 colors, 2 white, destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. That's pretty important because a lot of our creatures are actually 2 power, so this, we avoid quite a bit with this, plus most of our vehicles won't be creatures when we do this, so they'll avoid that as well, so it's just a good board clear. And also has on the Dawn side, so 3 colors, 2 white, Aftermath, so that means you can basically just cast this from your graveyard. Return all creature cards from or with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So a great way to recur some guys and then just save some power on the board essentially while destroying everything else. Then we've got a Fumigate, so 3 colors, 2 white, sorcery, destroy all creatures. You gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way. So I left out the Hour spell, I can't remember exactly what it's called, the big board wipe that destroys all non-land permanents, specifically because we have a lot of artifacts and we don't really want to do that, so I think these 2 board wipes are plenty for us. Okay, so breaking into our instant speed spells, we've got a Forsake the Worldly, so 2 colors and a white, instant, exile target artifact or enchantment. It also has cycling 2, discard this card, draw a card. As I said in the previous video about Brawl, this is probably one of the best removal spells we have in the entire format at this point. It basically handles all types of problems, and exile is a thing still, and cycling, everything about this is amazing. Then we've got a Fateful Showdown, so 2 colors, 2 red, instant. Fateful Showdown deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of cards in your hand. Discard all the cards in your hand, then draw that many cards. So just a great way to wheel a terrible hand, like if you're just like drawing lands and lands and lands, and then just cycle it and get some actual, valuable gas, essentially. And then we've got our enchantments, so Authority of the Consuls, so a white enchantment, creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your opponent's control, you gain 1 life. So just a good way to kind of slow your opponents down. Then we've got a siege modification, so a colorless 2 red, aura, enchant creature or vehicle. As long as enchanted permanent is a vehicle, it's a creature in addition to its other types. Enchanted creature gets +3/+0 and has first strike. So these spells are great. These auras, I think there's only like 2 or 3 of them. I think we included 2 of them. Just being able to have your vehicle become a creature all the time. There is the downside of if this is removed, it turns back into a vehicle. Plus, there's always the 2 for 1. If they destroy your vehicle, then this just falls off and goes to the graveyard. So auras are always a little bit risky. Then we've got a aerial modification. So 4 colors and a white. Enchant creature or vehicle. As long as enchanted permanent is a vehicle, it's a creature in addition to its other types. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and flying. So once again, really powerful effect. Okay, moving on to our lands. We've got a Desert of the Fervent, so not a whole lot of choice for non-basic lands, but I think cycle lands are always good. Just being able to, if you top deck it and you're like, God, not another land, you can cycle it away, draw a card. Not bad at all. Same story here, Desert of the True. Then we've got Evolving Wilds, just a little bit of mana fixing. Field of Ruin, a little bit of land destruction / mana fixing, so it's a great way to get rid of some of those flipped over, like the Conqueror's Galleon that we saw earlier. It's a great way to get rid of some of those lands that are extremely powerful. And then we've got a Inspiring Vantage, so a fast land, taps for red or white. Then we've got Inventor's Fair, so a great way for us to gain a little bit of life, plus be able to search up an artifact at some point. Spire of Industry, this is probably one of the best lands in the entire format, really. It pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, activate this ability only if you control an artifact. So yeah, no, otherwise taps for colorless. So a great way for us to fix our mana. Then I think we did a split between mountains and plains. I can't remember the exact number. Like I said with the last video, I have yet to play test these decks, so I don't want to give numbers out, specifically yet, just because I don't want to be completely wrong. So, and I have a tendency to really wait to dial in the mana base until I'm really playing the deck. So we'll see. Maybe I'll do an update in the comment section or something like that and let you guys know if you're looking for specifics. But I'm pretty sure you can figure it out yourself as well. Of course, plains as well. So after our basic lands, I kind of started doing this section where I kind of break into what we can add in Dominaria, and there's actually some pretty cool stuff that we can start thinking about here. So we've got Karn, Scion of Urza, so this is great for our decks. So 4 colorless, 5 loyalty, legendary planeswalker Karn. It's got +1, reveal the top 2 cards of your library. An opponent chooses one of them, put that card into your hand, and exile the other with a silver counter on it. So a great way to kind of like generate a little bit of card advantage. The -1, put a card you own with a silver counter on it from exile into your hand, so that gets the card, whatever they chose to exile, back in your hand. So it's slow, but it definitely works. They need to get rid of this guy right away, so hopefully that, draws attention away from you, or you can just keep him and keep generating, all kinds of advantage. So it also has -2, which is awesome. Create a 0/0 colors construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So obviously in an artifact-centered deck, this ability is great. You can turn your anything into basically a creature and just start swinging at people. Then we've got Tashar Ancestors Apostle, so 3 colorless and a white, legendary creature, bird, cleric, flying. Whenever you cast a historic spell, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Artifacts, legendaries, and sagas are historic. So as we talked about before, a lot of creatures are really low to the ground. A lot of our spells or permanents are really low to the ground as well. So this actually works great for the deck. Plus having more flyers is always great. Yeah, overall awesome addition here. Then we've got a Baird, Steward of Argive, so 2 colors, 2 white, legendary creature, human soldier, vigilance, creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker control unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. It's also a 2/4. So this deck has a tendency, even like the bigger version, regular commander, has a tendency to not have very good blockers because everything's being used to crew your vehicles. So this is a great way to kind of like curve that disadvantage. We've got Mox Amber. I think this will work great for this deck. Essentially as soon as you cast a Saram or a Depala, it taps for any color you want. Yeah, it's great. 0-cost artifacts are always good. And we've got a Voltaic Servant, so 2 colorless, 1/3 at the beginning of your end step. untap target artifact. This would be great for our vehicles. Just being able to block with something like the Sky Sovereign is really important sometimes, so this is actually a really good include. They've got a Jorah's Familiar, so a 4 colorless artifact creature bird flying. Historic spells you cast cost 1 colorless less to cast. 2/2. So yeah, like I said earlier, we're kind of low to the ground, but this still helps out with, you know, just being more efficient with our mana, being able to cast those Gear Hulks for 4 and 5 instead of 5 and 6. I mean, that's pretty important. Sky Sovereign for a little bit less as well. And I've got a Forebearer's Blade, so 3 colorless artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+0 and has Vigilance and Trample. Whenever equipped creature dies, attach Forebearer's Blade to target creature you control. So this is kind of breaking into a little bit more of like the, I guess, you know, when we actually have Dominaria, there are some pretty good vehicles there, equipments there that we can start adding to this to kind of like get a little bit more of that SRAM synergy, but you can bet your bottom dollar these will start really hitting in the SRAM deck tech that we'll get to at some point. I've got Helm of the Host. Now, I love this card. I've fallen in love with it. So it's a 4-colorless legendary artifact equipment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except the token isn't legendary. If equipped creature is legendary, that token gains haste. Equip 5. So yeah, extremely powerful. I mean, even with Depala, like, this is just a small synergy, but think about it. You get a token of Depala that you can now crew something with. You can now pay X into it and then look at the top X cards of your library and find a dwarf or a vehicle without tapping your original Depala. Yeah, it's really, really powerful. Plus, all of your creatures now get +1/+1 if they're a vehicle, and or +2/+2 if they're a vehicle, and dwarf they get +2/+2. So, really great addition here. Love this card. And then, of course, Clifftop Retreat is an auto include, so just getting more lands, you know, more of our colors. And then we've got a Zalfir in Void. Sorry, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Enters the battlefield, scry 1, taps for a colorless. So once again, having a little bit of like library manipulation is always good. So this is another great addition. And with that, I believe that is the end. Yep, we're back to Toolcraft Exemplar. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this little series of Brawl decks that we're putting out. I'm, like I said, super excited about the format. I think it sounds cool. I know a lot of people are a little salty about it, you know, unrightfully so in my opinion. It's just another way to play Magic, and really at the end of the day, if you're making the complaint that this is just Wizards trying to make money, yeah, they're a business. They need to make money. Duh. That's how it works. So anyway, we'll see you guys in the next Brawl or Brew preview or whatever we're doing. Thanks. See you next time. Bye.